They're all clones of this guy right here. Yes! There's a spoiler in your face.
Impossible.
Hey guys, how are you? I hope you are well. Today we are going to talk all about the 7 Lord Tensen of Hell's Paradise, and for those of you who don't know me yet, I am the Monio, the interdimensional demon that most dominates the art of Tao in all of YouTube, and you are on my channel. There are many monsters on Kotaku Island, but within them the strongest are the Lord Tensen, a group of 7 beings who govern the island, and the Tensen live in the center of this island which is called Horai, and throughout their lifetime, just as we see in the anime, they practice and perfect themselves in the ways of the Tao, to achieve perfect immortality and reach the famous elixir of life. What are Lord Tensen? Sometime in the 3rd century, Rain, this guy, went on a journey with a bunch of other people to the east, to try to find the elixir of life, on a quest for the ruler at the time, very similar to the quest we see at the beginning from the anime with Gabimaru. So they arrived on this island, and decided to use the knowledge they had, along with Taoism, to discover the secrets to gain immortality, and this resulted in several creations, and one of the main creations that Rain made was to create 7 clones that would help him in his research to find the elixir of life, and they were named Lord Tensen. So we can say that Rain is the main one. He is the origin of everything. The Tensen were created by mixing the Tao of humans with the Tao of flowers, which is why their entire body has elements of flowers. And that's when Lin began to train all Tensen in the ways of Tao. But the Monio, what is this Tao? What training is this? As you know, Tao would be the energy they use, but that in fact all beings have, just like Naruto's chakra, or Saint Seiya's Cosmo. The difference here is that the Lord Tensen can use this Tao as an ingredient to make the elixir of life. Each Tensen received a task to practice the Tao. Remember that moment where the servant of the Lord Tensen, who looks like Gu, talks about the 5 paths of the Tao, and mentions 5 complicated names that no one memorized? Each of the Lord Tensen are sort of experts in one of those paths, and use one of these 5 types of training. For example, those 2 we see kissing at the beginning are Ju-Fa and Tao-Fa. They are experts in Bachu, which is the practice of seeking immortality and strengthening the Tao through hentai. In fact, any lord can practice Bachu with another, as long as one is in the male form and the other in the female form, so that the connection between yin and yang can be made. The other 4 paths are Du-In, which is training through physical strengthening. There is also Taisoku, which is related to breathing techniques. We also have Shuitsu, which is training through meditation. And finally we have the Shutten, which is training through the study of the body's natural organs and their vital points. Each Tensen specializes in one of the trainings because when they evolve in that training they can pass the evolution on to the others. It's like an RPG team, in which if you evolve a skill of one of the characters, you evolve in all of them, and so it makes sense to focus on different skills in each character. Another interesting thing about the Lord Tensen is that each one has the Tao of a different element, and these elements are not limited to the 4 main ones that we are used to, and these elements can be strong and weak depending on the type of element they face. In fact, it's not even an exclusive feature of the Tensen, but of any character that uses the Tao, and that's cool because it creates a dynamic similar to the one we see in RPG games. The Lord Tensen have several skills. They have the Tao of Flower, which is where they get the ability to regenerate. They can also change their physical form to male or female. This helps to increase their Tao and recover part of the Tao that was lost. An interesting feature is when the Tensen have black eyes. It means that at that moment they are not feeling any kind of emotion. When they feel emotions again, their eyes return to normal. They also have a monstrous transformation called Kishikai, which is the one that Gabimaru faces. For example, the Kishikai form acts as a last resort for Tensens whenever they are cornered with their opponent, offering them a tremendous power boost that allows them to overwhelm their target. If they enter the transformation after they have taken too much damage to their bodies, a Tensen's mind will become unstable and they will lose control of themselves. However, the Kishikai form comes with a risk, as it consumes a lot of the Tensen's Tao in half an hour, and once the time runs out, they are reduced to their weak and aging bodies and will need time to recover. As the Tensen are the rulers of the island, each one has an authority over the island and they can command those monsters, which are also Rain's experiences. Do you remember that it is said by the generic group that there were people on this island? Who were these people, the Monio? It was the natives who lived there before the rain expedition arrived there. When the Lord Tensen were created, people saw the Tensen as gods. They worshipped the Tensen, and therefore they believed that these beings emerged from a divine being that divided itself into 7 entities achieving enlightenment. Of course, all this was a lie. It was a legend invented by Rain so that he could experiment with the people of the island, since Rain also sought immortality, but in a different way. He did not have the normal practices, because he was a researcher, so he did research with the people of the island, through their Tao, to create the elixir of life, and for Rain and the rest of the Tensen, humans were just an ingredient to create the elixir of life, since the Tao of the humans was more efficient to produce the elixir of life than the practices that the Tensen did. And as this elixir was very important for the Tensen, when an invader enters the island, looking for this elixir, the Tensen will do everything to protect the island, since for them the island is a big laboratory for them to make a perfect elixir of immortality, and that's why many times the Tensen don't kill the invaders. They leave the invaders almost dying to extract the Tao from them as an ingredient for the elixir of life. As Rain tried to create the elixir of life by extracting the Tao from the people of the island, this also helped the Tensen, because as they had the Tao practices they lost a lot of Tao, and they used humans to fuel their own Tao and continue the practices. After several centuries, the people of the island began to face extinction as they began to transform into trees, as explained by the generic Groot, since there are several species of animals on the island that have the Tao of flower, and when this Tao infects a human, several flowers begin to grow in her body, and this made several Tensen worried, since they ran the risk of losing the only source of Tao they had, since they supplied themselves with the Tao of humans. Then they realized that the Tao of humans outside the island was better, so they agreed with the idea of attracting more and more humans to the island, so that the Tao would continue to be supplied and the experiments would continue. Now let's talk a little about each Tensen. Rain. Rain is the leader of the Tensen, and also its creator. I'll just say that he is the strongest, being the final boss of Hell's Paradise. He was the one who planned all the Tao training that the Tensen would do, and for being the leader of the Tensen, he is the one who feels the most superior to humans, wanting from them only the Tao to fuel himself and his clones, and also to create the elixir of life. About his attributes, he has the greatest physical strength and speed of all, in addition to having an attack in which he launches a concentrated Tao that is so powerful that it destroys everything in front. It really is a lot of power. He has the ability to sense the presence of enemies and their weaknesses, being the only Tensen who can control the Tao completely, being able to control both living and non-living things with his Tao, which gives him a great advantage, mainly fighting in an environment like the island. His elemental attribute is that of earth, so his Tao is weak against enemies that have the wood-type Tao. But still, this guy is going to be a lot of work to beat. Tao Fa. Tao Fa is the Tensen we see in the anime doing hentai training. Tao Fa is the most relaxed and friendly Tensen of all. You will hardly see her in a bad mood, yet she has the same view of contempt as other Tensen towards humans. But it wasn't always like that. At the time when people from Tao Fa existed, island, she came to feel sorry for the people who had their Tao extracted to fuel the Tao of the Tensen, but that feeling ended after the people of the island were practically extinct. Like the other Tensen, Tao Fa can sense the presence of enemies and feel their weaknesses. She can also use her own Tao to become physically very strong, in addition to being able to launch Tao projectiles against her opponents that cause damage, both outside and inside the body, this being an extremely dangerous skill for those who cannot see the Tao. Its elemental attribute is that of wood, so its Tao is weak against enemies that have the Tao of the metal element. Jufa. Jufa is the blonde guy who fights the generic Bakugu, and he's the temperamental guy in the group. Anything takes him out of his mind, which makes him very brutal, especially with humans. Jufa has a very strong connection with Tao Fa, not only because of training but also an emotional connection. Jufa has always protected Tao Fa by being by her side since he was little. Jufa is quite powerful in physical combat, having a strength above the average of other Tensen, and like the others, he can sense the presence and weaknesses of enemies. His elemental attribute of Tao is fire, so he can get into serious trouble if he faces an enemy that has the Tao of the element of water. Guifa. It's Lord Tensen, who usually appears in anime with her face completely covered. But here's an image for you, and as you can see, one of Guayafei's peculiarities is her eyes are always black, always showing an absence of feelings. And another peculiarity of Guayafei is that she doesn't stay in either the male or the female form, preferring to have a body that matches both sides, having the appearance of a man and a woman. And this gives her a great advantage over to the other Tensen, as she manages more Tao. Guayafei's Tao is of the metal element, and with this Tao she can feel the presence of other people, the opponent's movements and weaknesses, and from that she can potentiate her attack on the opponent's weakest part. But Guayafei's main power is the creation of illusions using the Tao itself, creating any image that is in the memories she has, in addition to being able to release and direct her Tao against anyone, slowing down the enemy. Since Guayafei has the Tao with the attribute of metal element, it can be weakened if it faces an enemy that has the Tao of fire attribute. Mudan. Mudan is the Tensen who faced our dear Yuzuria. He always seems to be carefree, he always has a smile on his face, but his behavior does not match his personality at all, since he is one of the Tensen with the most cruel personality in relation to humans. As we see in the anime, he really likes to play with humans, but this is unnecessary, since the Tensen's goal is simply to extract the Tao from humans, but the Mudan wanted more, and turned the humans who faced him into servants, to fight enemies or just to make him feel superior. Mudan has great physical strength and incredibly high speed, being considered the second fastest of the Tensen, second only to Rain. Mudan has a Tao, which has the elemental attribute of the earth, and with that he can sense and predict his opponent's attacks. He can sense enemies' weaknesses, hide his presence, and he can also fire his Tao at high speed, this being a very effective skill on enemies who cannot feel the Tao, in addition to the ability we see in the anime to use the Tao to control the air, and he can fly. The downside of the Tao's elemental attribute of earth is the wood element. Ran. Ran is the Tensen that in the anime appears with his face all covered by these purple flower petals, but at a given moment his face will appear and that's it. Ran is the most loyal Tensen. He has the same view as Rain, that the Tensen are a family, and he considers humans extremely inferior to his race. He is also the Tensen who practices the way of Tao through physical training, developing various fighting styles, and because of this training he became very strong with incredibly powerful combat skills, having a combination of great physical strength and speed that make him one of the strongest Tensen. In addition to the skills focused on physical combat, Ren also has a skill that makes his body flexible, managing to control it in an unnatural way. In addition to that, he can feel the presence and know the weak point of the enemies at the same time. That hides its presence. He can also use his own Tao to make a shield around his body that protects him from any attack, in addition to controlling inanimate objects, being able to use them during the fight. Even the ground can be used by him to attack, causing multiple spikes to pierce enemies. Ran has the Tao of water, so his weakness is the Tao of earth. Zyu-jin. Zyu-jin is the first Tensen that we see in the anime, and that faced our ninja protagonist, and he is the famous lazy guy who just lives bored, and who only does his tasks because it's his obligation. Since all Tensen he has his responsibilities and has his shifts to keep watch on the island, and because he is very lazy, he doesn't exert himself in battle, thinking that the enemy is weak, and because of this behavior, he is considered the younger brother of the Tensen, or the most noob Tensen. As you prefer. Like the other Tensen, Zyu-jin also doesn't care much for humans, and despite having balanced attributes of strength and speed, none of his abilities stand out that much, the main ones being the default ability to sense presence and weaknesses, enemies, as well as the ability to cast your Tao against enemies. His elemental attribute of Tao is water, so his Tao is weak against enemies that have the Tao of earth element. So what's your favorite Lord Tensen? Leave it in the comments, and subscribe to follow more Hell's Paradise content. That's it, my people. Until next time, demonic hugs.